Hey guys, today I want to make a video about IGLing and we're going to break it into 4 segments. The first one is going to be if it's for you, and then how to structure a team if it is for you, and then the different play styles depending on CT and T side because you don't IGL the same on each side. And then next we're going to talk about can you actually successfully be an IGL for a team. So let's just go over the questions really quick on if you should even be an IGL. If you find yourself tilting, you shouldn't be an IGL. As an IGL, you need to make sure that your team has a really good and high spirit, especially in down moments, to make sure that you're still have your head in the game and that your mentality is really good. Another mentality thing is you should not be an IGL if you find yourself stressing really easily because you're going to have a lot of people depending on you to make the correct call, and you're going to have to really coordinate the best option, sometimes out of a series of bad options, and try to make sure you pick the best thing that gives your team the highest chance of winning. So then let's get into gameplay things that will stop you from being an IGL. If you like playing high contact areas like Con on Mirage, where you're going to be splitting your attention between mainly top mid, but also underpass and supporting your A players, then you shouldn't be an IGL because you're going to have a lot of stuff going on in the round that you're going to have to be coordinating with your team, and you're going to be giving a lot of information to the IGL to make the call. The other thing is you shouldn't IGL if you're an opper because an opper's job is to segment part of the map. Say we're holding CT to A main, then we're really trying to lock down this part of the map and make sure the enemy has no chance to break through it. So it's really kind of hard to hyper focus on that and IGL at the same time, which is why when you watch games, for example, you can go watch a pro game and see this. The IGL will almost always be on B because B is a very easy site to hold and it's very predictable to know what the enemy is doing on B than it is on the rest of the map. So your opera will usually be sorry, your opera will usually be CT or mid, and then your high contact players will be con and cat, and then usually you'll have some low contact players like somebody playing on A site. And then obviously you as IGL being on B is going to be a lot lower contact than anyone else. But that you being in lower contact allows your teammates to give you all the information and allows you to process the information on what you think is going on and to make the best call. So now let's talk about now that you have a team and now you need to build rapport with your team. As I said before, a really good way is just to play matchmaking with them, play face it hubs with them, play a couple pugs with them, just to make sure you get to know their personalities and that they'll be a good fit for you. And then you need to build a communication structure. This is hard sometimes with teammates from different countries. For example, I've played with people from South America before. Their English is usually really good and it's definitely good enough to communicate with, but they usually communicate a little bit slower since if you're communicating in something that's not your first language, it's going to take a little bit more time to make the call than it is if it's your native language. So you need to make sure you keep that into account if you're playing with people from different countries. The next thing is you need to go over every map and make sure you all call everything the same thing. So make sure every area of the map is being called the same thing. For example, if you call this dark, you need to make sure your whole team is calling this dark. So that way there's no confusion. Some people call this under and some people call this under. So if you call under and you guys didn't go over the maps, then there might be some confusion on where they actually are. I know these are pretty far away, so those ones usually aren't too big of a deal, but some maps have some areas really close together that people call the same thing. For example, on Inferno, some people call dark the deep backside, some people call dark the pit where the grill used to be, and that's just an example of something that can be really confusing in the game if you didn't go over it beforehand. So then once you have all your players, you need to make sure that you assign roles and positionings for all your players for pistol rounds, default rounds, and stuff like that. And you should really have a lot of strats to go over with your team so that everyone knows what they're doing. And now let's go into IGLing based on the different sides. So on T side is where the IGL is going to be a lot more vocal than on CT side. On T side, you want to give a first and a secondary call. So for example, you'll say, let's play default into a cat pop. So then you should have gone over that with your teammate before the game. So all your teammates know that you're going to be defaulting into a cat pop. But you also need to be really adaptive in that if you call that and then your A ramp player says there's 4 people rushing A ramp, then you can easily call to your team, let's just rush B instead, because if there's 4 A ramp, going B is going to have a higher success rate than popping cat. So you need to make sure that you're able to change on the spot like that. And then let's go into leading by example on T side. On T side, as an IGL, say you're going A, you're going to be entering out A. You need to make sure that when you do your strats, you're gonna be the center point. Well, not the center point. You're gonna be the leading point of the strat. So for example, if we were going A, it would be my job to come out A, get a lot of this information, clear this as much as I can. There'll probably be a smoke here, so you can go against the smoke, clearing here into CT, and then maybe your teammate can flash you into CT. So as IGL, you're just getting as much information as you can firsthand, and that's really gonna help your team win. But that being said, if being a star player and getting like big clips is something that you want to do and that you enjoy a lot, then you shouldn't IGL, because you can't lead by example doing that and then also get a lot of the big clips, because it's very likely you're not going to be alive in the clutch situations and stuff like that. So that's something you need to take into account as well. Now let's talk about CT side. CT side is a lot more loose. Usually you just give one main call on an objective you want to complete that round. Say you've been losing mid a lot, then call for your team to double up con to throw smoke here. One person can fight top right here. The other person can jump behind the smoke and play above it like that. So you have two people fighting top mid. You can call for your teammates to jump out window and do the boost right here, and so they can see up cat and you can smoke under. So really the calls are a lot more loose and player oriented, other than being strat oriented, which are more strat oriented on T side. So that gives the players a lot more freedom. So now, obviously, you would be the anchor since you are on B. You need to be in the low contact area so you can process all the information and so that you can have the high success of making the best call. Well, now let's talk about, now that you have your team together, the structure together, you have your strats down, everything like that. Now let's get into, can you actually be a good IGL? Because to be an IGL, you need to bring a lot of mental preparation into the game. You need to make sure that your teammates are always happy, and you really need to understand all your teammates, and you need to really be a people person. And so another really important thing is, in CSGO, every round is a new round. You can win with pistols if the strat is good enough. You can win with a scout and a deagle if your teammates hit some good shots and you put them in the right spots. And you need to make sure that your team understands this. Every round is a winnable round. Every game is a winnable game. Everyone has come back from some insane games, and everyone has lost some games they shouldn't have lost. So you need to make sure your team understands that you need to keep your mental in a really good spot even when you're winning, so that you don't throw the lead, and especially when you're losing, so that you can bring the game back. And then especially at the halftime, you're going on a whole new side and the economy is completely reset. You need to treat that like a whole new game. Don't treat it like if you're getting stomped. Don't let the enemy just keep stomping you and keep going along with that kind of momentum they having. It's a new half. Maybe call an extra timeout if you don't get one. And that's another thing as an IGL. You're gonna have to manage the timeouts for your teams very well to make sure that everyone is getting a break when they need it, because the IGL is usually the one that's gonna be calling the timeouts. So you need to make sure you understand when your team is having a rough time and call a timeout to really help work with them and get it out. Next thing for an IGL is you're usually going to need the most experience out of anyone on your team, game-wise, so that you can have the best game sense and that you can understand the timings and the rotates really well on the map, and that will really help you make some really good calls based on the map. The next thing is you need a demo review. This is something I would recommend every IGL do. The first thing you should do in a demo review is games you've played with your team, watch your demo with your team and criticize the things you did wrong. Have that be the very first thing you do. Criticize yourself in your own demo first with your entire team there, so that they can see that you know that you're not perfect, and that's really going to help build respect and rapport along the team. And then after that, what you should do is go one-on-one with every single person in your team and just watch the demo with them, just you and them, no one else on the team, and then talk about what they could have done better and maybe why they didn't follow a call. Maybe something happened in the match where they couldn't follow it. And then after you do that with every single person on your team, then get everybody into a call and then watch the demo from the caster's point of view and see what you could have done better as an entire team. If you do that, I know it's really time consuming, but you will grow exponentially as an IGL and your players will grow and improve insanely fast. So the next thing I want to talk about is developing a communication method. So for example, if I'm on B, my A player under, let's say he hears 3 smokes come over A. For me, he has to call how many footsteps he hears and how many smokes are thrown. So if he was right here and he heard one person, he would say 1 footstep, 3 smokes. That way, as an IGL, I know there's a possibility that that's one person throwing 3 smokes, and there's also a possibility that that's 3 people each throwing 1 smoke. But if he just calls But if he just calls that he has 3 smokes, then that tells me that he thinks the 3 smokes are 3 separate people. So you need to make sure that your teammates are calling. So if it's one person, say one person, 3 smokes. So as an IGL, you can calculate if you think it's one person throwing 3 smokes or if you think it's 3 people throwing 3 separate smokes. And so you need to make sure that you guys understand communication so that there's no misunderstandings. The next thing is you really need to tell your teammates when they've done something well and make sure that they keep doing that. And then after you tell them something that they've done really well, then you need to tell them something they're doing wrong and try to work with them to try to fix it. Don't just tell them what they're doing wrong, give them something to do to fix it. That kind of brings into the difference between complaining and fixing. If you just tell them something they're doing wrong and you don't actually give them a fix for it, then you're just complaining to them, and that's a really bad environment for your teammates to be in, and they're probably not going to want to play with you if you do that. The next thing is you need to manage the time that's in the round well enough. So for example, if you want to play a really slow round on CT side and wait for T side aggression, if the T's never get aggressive anywhere, then you're going to need to switch the strategy up before the clock runs out so that you have enough time to clear all the angles you need to clear, to get the util out, to regroup the team and things like that. The next thing you need to do is you need to build a practice schedule for your team so you're all practicing at the same time. Maybe have them have 1 hour of aim practice where they can practice aim however they want, have 1 hour of utility practice so they can practice individual utility, and then have 1 hour of team practice, have 1 hour of playing matchmaking where you can just build rapport as a team and just have fun together, because you need to make sure that you're not just playing as a team. Make sure that you guys play other games together, or if you don't enjoy playing other games, make sure that you're just playing matchmaking or surf servers or stuff that's really light where you can just build rapport together. And the last thing I'd want to say is definitely listen to your teammates. Maybe they have some input onto a strat not being great, and then they can help you better improve that strat and then better work as a team. Or maybe they just have a piece of utility. Maybe they have a really good smoke that you didn't know about, and then you can put that into a strat to make the strat have a higher success rate. And then to finish off, what I want to say is an IGL, your job is every round to call the strategy that you believe will have the highest success rate. So you got to make sure you have a lot of experience so that you have experience in a situation 100 times. That you've played the same exact situation 100 times, and you know every call you've made in that situation, so you know what works and what doesn't, and then you call the one that has worked the most amount of times. That would I would say would be the general premise of an IGL if I had to summarize it. So the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get a strat out of my strat book and show you it and kind of show you how the entire team will work together. And so let's get right onto that. Okay, so now let me give you an example of a strat. So this strat is a T pistol run strat, as you can see at the top. And then below that, in parentheses, it's called default pistol, so that if your IGL says default pistol, then you'll know this is a strat you're doing. On the far left, you can see everybody rifle 1, 2, 3, 4, op and IGL, which is all your players. On the far right, you can see all the utility that is necessary for the strat. In this case, the only necessary utility is a flashbang for the IGL. So rifle 1 and 2 will be going up a ramp together alongside the IGL, who's going to be going up side hall. Rifle 3 will be B, waiting for them to get side hall control, and then we'll start lurking out B. And then the op is going to go up ladder into mid. Up ladder into mid just like this, and they're just going to hold mid like this to make sure that there's no pushes going on. So that's where everyone's going to be, and bomb will be dropped right here by rifle 1 or 2. So at the beginning of the round, whoever has bomb will drop it to either rifle 1 or 2, and they'll know to drop it there. And so the goal of this strat is to execute the A site, but if something goes wrong, obviously the goal is they want to go up there, I want to get up here so that I can flash them out so that they can take site together. And you can have really dynamic strats. For example, you can molly this if you want. You can buy a smoke and you can smoke one of these sides if you want. You can have them both buy a smoke and smoke both sides if you want. This is what's really good about a strat, is there's a lot of ways to play one strat. So then obviously if we're doing this and somebody dies and say I want to fall back, since bomb is right here, it's not too committed. So the guy that's mid, if we have success on A and want to keep going A, he can drop, grab bomb, and just go A. And then if something bad happens, he can drop, grab bomb, and go B. So then it's really dynamic. And then this player that was taking B control, if he's up here and we end up going A, he can just flank them. Or if we go B, then we'll have really good B control all the way up to Gen. So it's a really dynamic strat, and everyone has the exact roles that they need to do, which should be talked about before. Everyone knows exactly what will happen under certain circumstances, and then the IGL will call any changes that may happen. Then you have obviously the exact utility everybody's going to need, and that's a really good way to write strats into a strat book. There's one here, A, but they're not pushing it.
Falling, sandbags.
You guys ready for flash? Ready for flash?
Yeah.
Throwing now?
I'm holding it. One elevator. Are we going up?
Heaven and elevator.
One side, yeah, one heaven, one elevator. I don't. Are we fighting this?
Okay, come A, come
Okay, I
A.
guess we're fighting this. One was heaven. One was heaven. Careful. No, just fall back. Fall
Christian?
I'm low
back.
HP, I'm low HP.
Yeah, just stay alive. One heaven. Nice, nice, sir, Matt. One elevator. Dead,
Elevator.
dead, dead.
Nice.
Jaxie, throw ramp smoke now, throw ramp smoke.
Bangos on the flank. I think I heard him elevator. Pretty sure. Could be wrong though. Could be wrong. Elevator. Dead,
Nice, nice.
Nice.
Good job, guys.